Today's episode of Thunderbird Garage is all about what goes here, and it's dedicated to a friend in Miami, Jorge. Jorge is a viewer who just lost his wife, but he and his wife got married in 1957, the same year as Walt's car. So Jorge, this one's going out to you. Welcome to Thunderbird Garage.
Thunderbird Garage, where the classics come alive. 57 Magic Man, it's more than just a drive. Thunderbird Garage, let the good times thrive. Ooh.
So when we talk about what goes here, we're not talking wheels and tires today. We're talking spats, pants, skirts, fender skirts. Over the years, they became known by many things. Early on, in probably the 1920s, there was a guy named Frank Lockhart, and he was trying to set a land speed record in a 1928 Stutz. And Frank decided that aerodynamics, which weren't really a thing fully yet for cars, would be really important. So he decided to create some aerodynamic enclosures for his wheels and his tires. So that he called pants. And that's sort of where the trend began. And then a guy named Amos Northup, who ended up working at Graham Page as a designer, ended up introducing in 1932-33 a design, an early influence of fender skirts. And then people or organizations like Nash really brought them to popularity. And certainly throughout the 50s and 60s, Ford and GM really took advantage of the design cue, and they introduced a whole lot of variants. This little additional chrome piece was a skirt protector that was introduced by Ford as well. And these skirts actually cover this area of the wheel. The trend in fender skirts actually continued through the 1970s. I remember my dad having a 1970 Buick Riviera that had fender skirts. Didn't quite understand what those things were, but I saw my brother take them off one day and I thought that was kind of cool. And then they sort of were phased out throughout the 70s. Although a friend of mine, a dear friend Quinn, who ended up being a very successful automotive guy, his dad, I remember, had an Oldsmobile. I think he had an Oldsmobile Regency 98 or something like that in 82 or 83 when I was a young guy, and that had fender skirts as well. But GM sort of phased out fender skirts by the mid-80s, although cars like the Buick Roadmaster and a couple of other ones brought them back for a command performance in the early 90s. And certainly cars like the Citroën, just fun to say, isn't it? Used fender skirts in a lot of very futuristic way through all their years. But in any event, the design and the use really came out of aerodynamics. How do we create less drag around these wheels? But even more importantly, how to extend the body line and make them look more streamlined. So even if they weren't exactly automotive aerodynamic marvels, they sort of looked like that. But how do you get these things on? So let me show you here. This isn't always easy, and I might need a couple of different camera angles to do this, but this is a fairly freshly painted fender skirt. You'll notice it also has a rubber molding at the top. And if you have an older vehicle with these, you oftentimes rust collecting in here due to kind of water and moisture collection, also underneath the actual chrome trim as well. But these things, you gotta sort of be really gentle with. I typically always start at the bottom when I'm doing these, and there's a hook over here and a hook over here that you want to engage. So sort of getting it from the low end here, from the widest part, getting that in there, and then also going over to this side and trying to get this. We don't scratch the paint. Whoops, I unhooked on this side. As you can see, it's not the easiest thing to do. But you get it in there, and then you also have to make sure that you don't scratch the paint up on the top. So it is not an easy thing to do, but you sort of get it like that. And then with a little bit of kind of friction and tension, you pull this lever up, which actually locks into a little slat over there. And then you pull this hook up and you put it on the inside of the lip of the fender skirt. Easier said than done, right? Wow. Let me show you the backside operation of this thing. So this is the little pin or the arm that hooks in over here like that. And remember, start wide first, and then just enough to get these tabs under the lip here, and then up from there. But this little bar here, sorry if I'm out of camera, goes inside there on a little hook. So picture, it's in the flush position, so you can get it by the bodywork. And then when it's in place, you lift up this lever, hook it over the inside lip here, and then when you do, this bar comes down into place and keeps it where it needs to be. So that's how fender skirts stay on cars. But there's also a little trick. There's a micro hole there. You can't even, maybe you can see that. It's very tiny. So there's a hole that people have put wire or a zip tie through to prevent this arm from popping loose when you're driving over a big pothole, and then perhaps losing your fender skirt. So I was wondering why I couldn't get my fender skirts off my car when I first got it, and it's because there was a little micro zip tie on that. So anyway, that's how it look like. They're supposed to sit fairly tight. This actually, the body's pretty straight on this, so it actually sits in there nicely. Oftentimes, if you've had a lot of body work done in this area, it's tough to get these things to sit correctly. And then there's a lot of folks that customize these. There's a great channel, if you haven't seen it, on YouTube with a guy, I think in Nova Scotia, named Bad Chad. And Bad Chad does custom bodywork and oftentimes custom fender skirts. And the way he creates them is just amazing. And people will watch his videos way longer than mine for about a half hour of just custom metal work that he does. But it's very cool. So anyway, this is a fender skirt. I love the look of these. At first, I didn't really. I sort of wanted just to have an open kind of wheel, especially with these. And these are reproduction wire wheels. They're made to look like the Kelsey Hayes wire wheels. So this spinner here, depending on the size of the wheel, can interrupt or intersect with the actual fender skirt here. So these are 14-inch wheels. They also have 15s, which actually look kind of mean or kind of tough on the car without the fender skirts. And it's tough to get these things to fit in a 15-inch kind of wheel with the fender skirts. But in any event, these fit nicely. I like the look, and I think with the bronze color and the way it sits, I sort of like the streamlined look of the car. It sort of makes the car a little more complete and a little classier, if you will, versus just tough. The other thing, when you leave it off and you've got the two tabs hanging down, it doesn't really feel finished. So in any event, these are fender skirts. They've gone by a number of names, whether you're in Australia, the UK, at Scats or Skirts in the US, or if you're Frank back with his 1928 Studs, maybe you call them pants. But in any event, that's a fender skirt. That's how it goes on, and be careful. It's really easy to scratch them in your car when you're putting them on.